These are wonderful days that we're living in. Days when God is supernaturally visiting the nations all over the world. And I've had the privilege of being a missionary to the nations since 1947, when I went as a very young girl in my very early 20s to China, landing in Shanghai in December when it was cold and snow was on the ground. And we saw a move of God then among the Chinese, but it's nothing compared to what God is supernaturally doing now in China without there being missionaries to help them. And that's the amazing thing. God is doing this through the Chinese people by the work of the Holy Spirit. You see, sometimes we think that it is just our ability to bring souls to God, and it's true, God uses humans. But without the Holy Spirit working through that human, there can be no contact with the lost. It's the Holy Spirit who has to pierce the powers of darkness that lie between the light and hell. And it's the Holy Spirit who has to work through you as an individual to reach that soul who is in darkness and bring them out of the darkness to the revelation of the light. Talking and preaching and teaching alone won't do it. But the Holy Spirit in us must do the work. And right now in China, it is absolutely amazing what God is doing. Every day there are churches being new underground or home churches that are coming into being. Nobody can even count them. People gathering in secret by the counsels of God and praying together. And what is so wonderful is my son has been doing missionary work in China quite extensively, and he has been able to put out over 50,000 Bibles that we have been able to get into the hands of the people, which are printed right in China. There was a time when if they saw a Bible, they would burn it and destroy it. Now, China government itself is printing the Bibles. And we are reaching so many hungry hearts. And that's just a drop in the bucket of what God is now doing in China. And there was a time when we had to smuggle the Bibles in. There was a time when we had to try to get them in on our bodies or carry them in. And we would be apprehended at the borders if they found them. And there was a lot of danger and fear of being put in prison for bringing Bibles in, or they were taken away from us. And we had to take them back again when we came out of China. They usually gave them back to us when we came out of China because they didn't want them in the country. But now, to think of it, God has opened the door so that we are printing them now right in China itself. And other religious books are being printed in China, which is wonderful. So there's a great move of God in China. Then there's a great move of God in India. And I have seen, when I preached in India, and I've been there about over 12 times, and I raised a tent all across North India in many of the large cities, in the Rajasthan, and in Madhya Pradesh, and in the Punjab. And in the Punjab, it's really the province that's on the borders of Pakistan. And Pakistan used to be a part of the Punjab. And it's very prominently different because that's where the Sikhs have their holy temple in Amritsar. It's called the Golden Temple. And they have a different religion. It's a little like Hinduism, but they don't believe in many gods. The Sikhs only believe in one God, which is a lot different than Hinduism. And yet they have many Hindu cultures in their religion. But I have heard a most amazing story just 2 years ago when I was in Canada ministering. I was staying in a hotel that was owned and operated by a Sikh. That's the Sikh religion of the Punjab. And the owner, when I saw that he was a Sikh, because they wear the turban around their head, I said, well, what part of the Punjab are you from? And he said, he told me where he was from, what city he was from. And I said, oh, I've been there. He said, oh, I'd like to hear more about your story. I said, well, it's time for me to run to church, and I can't talk to you now. I'm running a little bit late. But when we have time, I'm here for several days, we'll visit together.